Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Dana Hockman and I am part of Application Consulting Group, a premier IBM business partner. Today we're having a webinar on IBM Planning Analytics Workspace Major Release 57. Joining me is Matt Burson, who will be giving the presentation, just showing you the feature.
My screen here. Coming into Planning Analytics Workspace version 57. So like Dana said, some really exciting new features that they've added in here. And we'll just start off with the new look and feel. And you'll see that straight away when you come into the home page. They've really changed the look of this initial page and really made better use of the real estate and really made it more of a personal landing page when you come in. So the first thing you'll see when you come in is this quick launch bar, and we'll just take a quick second to go through each of these. Applications and plans, we're going to dive into a bit more, but this is where you can see the different applications and plans that you have access to. I'm in as an administrator, so I'm going to see access to everything. Reports and analysis is sort of our traditional view of Workspace, where we can see those shared and personal folders and all the different workspace assets that you have access to. You'll also see favorites and recents, which is really, comes back to that personalization that you can add here. So if I wanted to add something to my favorites, and I know I'm looking for a workbook called Revenue Prediction and Analysis, I can do a quick search right here. I can heart that, and it's going to come up in my favorites here. And it's also going to come up as I exit out of here. It's also going to come up in my favorites right in this quick access section in the middle. Data and models, so for those who have modeler access, this is just going to take you quickly into a blank canvas and show you all the databases and database objects that you can access just for quick modeling, any TI processes, rules, anything you want to do, you can come quickly here. And then you have your administration tab, which has a bit of a facelift as well, where you'll see all the databases. And in addition, you have your ability to manage your agents, your users and groups, lifecycle management. And there's also this customizations feature here, which, as we'll talk about throughout this, there's a little bit more opportunity here for branding or making this, fit your organization's look and feel. So in here, we have the ability to actually upload custom fonts as well for use through your dashboards. So this quick launch bar, as you work with the tool, you might find it helpful just to minimize it. And this section here is really just for you. So it's going to be the applications and plans that you have access to. It's going to be your recents and your favorites. So here's that revenue prediction and analysis workbook I just added right here for general, for my consumption. So nice and personalized view. The other thing that's nice is this sidebar. And this sidebar is really going to, the sidebar is going to stick with us as we navigate through the tool. And you just have a quick sidebars for, quick trees for your shared, for your personals, and also to look at, objects by user. You can do that all from right here. And this sidebar will change a bit as we work in different places, but for the most part, you'll see these core objects available. So that's that's the new look and feel, and I think it's really best shown on the home page. You'll see some of these these things sticking with us as we navigate through the tool. So I'm going to pivot now, and I'm going to talk about guided planning or plans and applications. And really what this is doing is it's taking all of these different workspace assets that we've built and allowing them to be grouped together in either an application or a plan. So we now have the ability to build these applications or plans, and they can go across databases or TM1 instances. They can go across different workspace assets, and really allow a nice guided walk for our users. Now, the big difference between applications and plans, they're both, in a way, the grouping of these assets and giving specific users access to these guides, this guided navigation. The big difference with plans is it's really that next step for workflow. So, for some of you that might have, background with contributor or have custom workflow applications that you've built, this is sort of an out-of-the-box way to get workflow into your system. So I've created a plan called department planning, and I'm an administrator right now. So when I come in here, I'm actually going to see the setup of the plan. And up here, we have the title, department planning. You have the ability to brand it, so you can add a logo. And if you want to add a description here or whatever description you need to alert your users to what this is, you can do that right here. We'll come back up to some of the things up here, but I want to get into the meat of it, which is where we define the different workflow steps. So it's very, very easy to get this set up out of the box. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to add a step. So whatever our step is that we want to have our users work on comes right here, and we just go to add a step, and we give it whatever name we want. So I know I want my users to do just one final review of all their expenses after they've updated their headcount details and after they've updated their departmental expenses. I want them to do one final review. So I add that step in here, and then I assign my assets. And an asset is basically a workspace book or books. You can have multiple books in the same step. So I'm going to go to assign assets, and I know that there's a book called expense report that I want as part of this last step. So I save that. Gives me a little warning that I need to do a refresh before users will be able to see this. And then I assign my groups. So this again is who can see this and who has to submit this step of the workflow. So from here, I have my sales, operations, and marketing groups as part of my departmental expenses. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to set my target date at the end of the month. And I have an option here. Does it require submission, yes or no, or is it just a step we want our users to go through? I'm going to say yes. And then we have our options here to manage submissions, which I'm going to come back to after we see what a submission looks like. So no further actions done here. So that's how easy it is to add a step to our workflow. Now I'm going to come into announcements. So we opened the budget on 10/23, and I'm just going to create an additional announcement here, and then just say new step added for submissions. And now I have a new announcement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to refresh my permissions and refresh my plan. And I'm going to open this last step for submission. So one of the really flexible parts about the new guided planning is I can actually open and close the entire plan, or if you have different timings for different steps, you could theoretically close certain steps at certain parts in the submission, but keep the overall plan open. So now I'm just going to flip over and
Matt, this is Rob. There was a question from the audience. When you publish the budget guidance or the announcements, are you able to attach any documents such as let's say a rate guide or a budget guide to that, or is that not possible?
It is not. But what you can do is if you have that out on like a SharePoint, you could certainly put a link in here that would, be easy for a user to click through and see that, budget guidance document. It's a great question, though.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I have another browser window open here where I'm actually logged in as a regular user. So just to kind of go back a step to, what you see on the home page, you see it's a little bit more scaled down. I don't have the modeler, I don't have the data models, and I don't have the administration in my quick launch. And I only see one application, and that's department planning. So I'm going to go ahead as a user and open my contribution. And you can see here, I have my announcements right up at the top. So the latest announcement goes first. So it says new step added for submission. So I'm aware right off the bat that, there's a new step here in case I missed it. Now, and then I have my different steps here. So I have my headcount input, my headcount assumptions, and then I have my expense input, and I'll tap through these in a second. But I wanted to show you one thing here is, as I mentioned, this sidebar changes as we go through the application. I need a little bit more real estate while I'm working on this, so I expand that, and I can click into these and, put in whatever headcount updates I need to put in. And let's just say for, for example purposes here, I actually don't have any changes. So I'm just going to go ahead and submit this step. And I can just say no changes for this budget. And I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And we'll see. I know I've submitted now. And as I come back to the administrator view, I actually have to refresh this. When I come back into the administrator view here, now I can see 33% submitted because I only have these 3 groups. I can go to manage submissions. I can see that, I can see that marketing submission here, and I can also just go ahead and reset, and that's going to kick that back to not submitted, and that same marketing user needs to go back in and make their updates. And then, on the...
Hey, Matt,
yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry to interrupt, but we actually have a few questions here. So I think the first question was, how do we know the users have actually performed the steps? So I think you just demonstrated that, right? So in the managed submission section, you can see that 33% is completed. And when you click into it, you see who that was, right? So you got sales, marketing, operations, and only marketing submitted, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. So I think that's good. The second question is, you can open close steps in the workflow for groups. Can you do the same for specific subgroups like sales only? If you open, right? Can you open close steps in the workflow for groups? Right. So can you do a subgroup?
Okay. So you want to say like expense input for sales is closed,
Right?
but it's still for marketing and operations.
Yeah.
I don't want to say definitively, but I think if you did want to go that route, one way you could go would be to create separate steps for the different groups and assign, you don't have to have all 3 groups in each step. So you could have like sales expense input and then like all other expense input if you wanted to have sort of different parameters for different groups. I will take that as a follow-up though to see if there's any way to kind of close out a specific group on a specific step.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, we keep getting questions. Can you automatically?
Questions are great. Lets me know that people are listening. So yeah, please ask questions and interrupt as much as you guys need to.
Can you automatically add groups based on existing TM1 dimensions, such as by site?
No. And this is, I think this is something I wanted to follow up on anyway. So I will certainly, I'll certainly follow up with what I learned. The groups that are available here are currently managed in Workspace. So in the administration piece, you have your marketing, your group management in Workspace, and that's where these are coming from. I will put a disclaimer that, this version is, new to all of us. It's only been out for a few weeks here, so we're definitely learning. And I will look into the group management piece is specifically a piece that I've been, researching and looking for ways to streamline. So I will certainly follow up with what I learn on that.
Okay, thank you. I think we're good for now.
Okay. Okay, so then, so as so like I said, as you step through, you can close steps as you need to. And when you're all done, you can, close the plan up altogether just with this little toggle button here. And once you do that, that option that I showed you before when I logged in as a regular user to open contribution, that's going to go away. They're not going to be able to work on that on that application anymore, or that plan anymore. Okay, so that's plans. Thank you for those questions, really good questions. So I'm going to pivot now, excuse me, to predictive forecasting. And so I want to just interrupt the demo of Workspace and just pull up a slide here and just talk about, IBM analytics and forecasting and modeling. So you really, you've traditionally had this first option here, simple modeling with rules and spreading and basic data input in planning analytics. And what we've introduced here is option number 2 here, which is the IBM Planning Analytics algorithmic forecasting, which essentially behind the scenes does 8 exponential smoothing algorithms on time series, and then it selects the best fit. So it's doing a lot of number crunching and deciding what the best method is for forecasting. That's what I'm going to show you in just a moment here. Now, if you wanted to take it to the next level, with the IBM analytics stack, there's statistical modeling, which is SPSS, which is going to have all your statistical modeling and tools, data normalization, and really requires more of like a data scientist to, or at least a deeper understanding of statistics. But you can integrate that back with planning analytics if you wanted to leverage SPSS to do a forecast and then bring that data back into your, finance model or your sales model. You could certainly do that. And then option 4, as we get deeper into the cognitive roadmap, you have your decision optimization tool, CPLEX, which again can be integrated with planning analytics. So then you can combine option 3 and option 4 to get like what your best solution is. And then you can, go even further and go to the Watson and APIs, and that can also be integrated with PA. Much more involved than what we're talking about in options 1 and 2, though. So, like I said, where we are right now, traditionally with planning analytics, is the simple modeling. And what we have now, for the first time in version 57, is right out of the box, some real statistical forecasting right within the tool. So I'm going to come out of my planning model, and I'm going to go back to my home page. And if you recall in the beginning, I added a new favorite, revenue prediction and analysis. I'm going to open that up, and what I have here is I have my I have 10 products that I'm working with. I have a year of data, of forecast data, and then I have an out year. I have 2021, and I'm working with my work in progress version of my forecast. And down on the bottom here, and these will sort of come to life as I go here. Down on the bottom, I just have some time series charts and grid, just so you can see some of the details. And what I'm working with here is just a history of my units sold for each of my products. So in version 57, what we get is when we work in a grid, we'll get a variety of options up here, which we'll talk about some of these in a bit. But the last one is this little grid or a little chart with the upward arrow, and that's the forecast button. So for now, I'm going to highlight product 5, and I'm going to pop open this little forecast bar, and I get this menu over here, which is really going to walk me through some of the parameters to generate a forecast. So the first thing I do is, okay, where do I want to start forecasting? In this case, I'm good with my 2020 numbers, and I want to forecast my 2021 numbers. And I'm doing a relatively small data set just for example purposes, so we can see the underlying detail. I have this checkbox here, save statistical details as comments, and we'll talk about what that means. Now, if we go over to advanced, we have some other options here. So we have seasonality. I've been leaving this to auto detect. You can toggle this off and set your seasonality parameters or your seasonality intervals, and then you can also ignore certain time periods. For this example, I'm just going to include everything. And then we have our confidence interval. So the default is 95%, but we can go down to 90 or up to 99. Down here, we have how we want to save our predicted values. And typically we would use a version dimension. So like I said, I'm using my work in progress version as my starting point. And then I've created 3 new versions called Predictive, which is going to be the final prediction. And then for my upper bound and lower bound, I've just created 2 versions for Predictive High and Predictive Low. I'm going to save that. So now I have so I have 2 options now. I've set all my parameters. I'm happy with this. Now I can go preview or I can go forecast. So from here, I'm just going to click preview. And what I get is my source data, right, which is my solid line, and then I get my predictive line. And so you can see it's picking up the seasonality relatively well. It's got my ebbs and flows as I had in my historical data. Now, for those who are interested in the science behind it or the statistics behind it, you can go to statistical details. This is out of my wheelhouse personally, but if you're interested in seeing all the different pieces that it came up with, and you can see here the seasonality, it picks it up in period 6, the strength of the seasonality and the type of the seasonality, which is the one thing that was catching my eye. So this is just a little piece of info for you if you want to see how that statistical forecast was picked up. So now, if I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and click my forecast. Now, I only did that for period 5. I'm sorry, for product 5. And I took a minute for my tab to refresh there. But now what I did here is down on this grid here, I can look at the predictive, the upper bound and the lower bound on a time series with my current version. So I can kind of see that seasonality holding true on the predictive line here. And then over here, I just have some additional details. And like I said, you can save the commentary of or save into the commentary the statistical details of how it got to the number. And so if I go to my comments, I can see all of the details, or not all of the details, but a good amount of the details that it used to come up with the parameters that were put in, the seasonality that it detected, etc. So there we just did one product, excuse me. But there's no reason that we can't forecast more products. So if I, just shift click all my products here, I still get that same forecast bar, that same forecast option, which I can turn on. It should save most, if not all, of my parameters from my first run. I just, double check them. The one big difference when you select multiple is you can't really do a preview because it's doing right now 10 products. But I can go ahead if I'm, I did one as a sample, but I can go ahead and forecast everything. And I get my little update up here that the predictive forecast has been saved. So now we have to remember that when we do this, we're saving, the way it's set up right now is we're saving our predictive forecast to a different version. So right here in this view, we still don't see the numbers that we forecasted using the statistical tool. But if I wanted to take a deeper look at what those numbers generated, I can bring my versions down here into my view. And now I see for each product, I could scroll over to 2021 and I can see those predictive, the upper bound and lower bound for each product. And when I'm happy with that, we just have a simple action button up here with the TI process behind it. That's going to copy our data to our work in progress. I'll flip my version back up here. And get my dashboard back to how it was. And so now I have 2021 populated with, really just at least at a minimum, it just seeded my next year forecast or my next year budget using the statistical algorithms.
Hey Matt, so a couple of questions actually here from the audience here. So first one is, again, I think we answered this. Instead of selecting products, can we just do by selecting all products, or maybe do it at the brand level? So I think the answer is yes, right? Because the first thing you did, you selected product 5, but then so you selected the 10 products, but you can run it. I
selected the 10 products. So so I've seen some. So the answer is yes. However, I've seen some anomalies with how it picks up seasonality when you do it at the total level. So the short answer is yes, you can. I need to do a little bit more digging on how it's coming up with the seasonality when you do it at a total level.
Right. So instead of picking the 10 products, you can just select all products, and it's going to pick up all the children underneath it, right?
Right. And like I said, the seasonality, it would be worth just making sure it's picking up seasonality correctly when you do it at that level. Because I have seen, in my testing, I've seen some anomalies when you do it at a consolidated level.
Yeah, understood. Second question is there a limitation to number of products that this can support? So is there a limit to the depth of the hierarchy, or maybe is it does it require any minimum or maximum data? So you're looking with 1 year. Do you need to have 3 years, or is there any limitation?
This demo, I did 1 year of history. I did do some testing with 3 years of history, and it worked. It worked just fine. And I did some testing with up to about I think I did about 1,000 rows. But there's no documented limits. It's really just, obviously the more data you crunch, the longer it's going to take to spit out the data. But I don't think there's any documented limits on what you can do. Mm-hmm. And I'm yet to hit anything. I'm yet to hit anything definitive in terms of a limit on what you can do with this.
Yeah. One more question. Are these forecasts available to others, or are they public or private until submitted?
So that's a good question. So it's all model based because I'm actually using the real version. I'm using a version dimension. So it would really be how the security. Just to go back to the setup. So here I'm using my actual version dimension. So really, if users have access to see the version called predictive high and predictive low, then they could theoretically see these values, and you'll see like you can see here I select my dimension, I select my hierarchy, and I select the members to save it into. So it's really implementation specific of who you want to see it and when.
Right. And so one more question. Are the versions created by the administrator or users? I'm assuming that the administrator creates the new, depend on the governance, right? But you have the administrator create the versions and the users will just pick which version do they want to use for their particular product that they have access to, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the administrator, like you said, depends on governance. But in most implementations, your administrator would create the versions and give access to the specific users that need them.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I think that's all the questions we have at this point on statistical forecasting.
Awesome questions. Yeah, and that's pretty much that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's like we said in that slide, it's choosing the best method for you, and or the best method that it thinks for the data that's been presented. And if you want to go to those next levels, then you can look at some of those other tools that are available. So I'm going to move on from here. If there's no other questions on predictive forecasting. And I'm going to move into some of the visual highlights of the new version, of version 57. So, and to highlight this, I'm just going to pop over here to this reporting tab. And what I have here is just a couple different visualizations. Now, the first one that's highlighted has been at least in my experience, has been a common ask to see in these reporting tools, and it's a waterfall chart. So this is one that I've done several times as a price volume mix impact, which kind of takes you on a walk from your budget to your actuals or your forecast, and walks you through the price impact, the volume impact, and the mix impact that is caused your budget to go to a particular forecast, whether it be up or down. So this has been, one of the nice new adds to the visualization library. There's a couple other new ones as well, like a bullet chart, which I don't believe was there in version 55. And there's a couple other new ones. So this one has been really nice though, and it was very easy to create too. It's laid out very well. I'm going to show the new charting UI in just a moment. And then this is one that was that's always been there. But it's been, it's easier to create, and you don't have to start with a view anymore. So you can actually start just with the chart right out of the gate, which is what I'm going to walk through in just a moment. So let me show you with an existing chart sort of what it looks like. So I'm in edit mode right now, and I'm going to pop over to this one because this is the waterfall chart has a slightly different look and feel to it in terms of this. But when you highlight a chart or an exploration for that matter, you'll get this fields button up here. So we've always had that properties button, but the fields button is really kind of guiding you with what's making up your chart. So you can see what your x-axis is, what your column length is. You know, so I have a bar line combo here. So it's really telling you exactly what makes up each component of your chart. And then of course you have your forecast down here, which has full access to the set editor. So you can, you know, change your forecast, right? Change your parameters from right down here. And of course, these all tie back into synchronization. So you can put your selector widget on as well to kind of control your filters on your chart. But this has been really nice in just really knowing what's going where in your chart. And after I'm done just walking through some of these changes, I'm going to walk through how to create a chart from scratch now. Now on the properties, you know, one of the things that you're going to see just across the board is the color capabilities now. You have all these different palettes to choose from, which you've always had, but you actually have the ability to create your own custom color palette. So, you know, we talked a little bit about branding and making this tool organization specific. So if you're trying to build applications that have a certain color scheme that are consistent across, you know, different applications, different tools, you can create your own custom, your own color palette. You know, you get your full RGB hex codes here to, you know, create your own color palette as specific as you want. And then of course we always have the, you know, the out of the box 8 IBM color palettes as well that are available to you. So, so you see here I have palette 7 selected. It's a little bold, so if I, you know, just change my palette to 4, kind of get some more muted colors there, I can quickly do that. And then we have all sorts of formatting down here to mess with our axes, mess with our axis titles, change the orientation of the axis labels. So really just lots of different formatting on the charts now to really, you know, we talk about more robust dashboarding, and like this is the type of things that we've needed. So and now I'm going to just walk you through how easy it is to create a chart now and how guided it is, which is what I really like about it. So I am going to do a stacked column chart. And as soon as I open that up, it's going to tell me here's what we need to populate. So, and now I go to my databases here. Like I said, the sidebar changes a little bit as we navigate. So when I click on this, I get my different databases that I have access to. And I know I'm going to be in the revenue forecast tab. And so my bars, that's going to be my time dimension. And so I have a saved set already, so I can just drag my 2020 months into my bars. I know the length of my bars, I want to be based on units. So I go into my revenue account and I'm going to drag units in here. So now color, so I remember I chose a stacked bar chart. So I want to see just my product 1 and product 2 because I know they're in the same grouping. So I want to just take I just want to look at my product 1 and product 2 and stack those up. So I'm going to drag that into the color. And then I just have to set my filters. So you see it auto-populated my filters as I got everything else set up here. I have scenarios and versions left. So I'm just going to grab, I don't want all scenarios. I just want my forecast. And I don't want all versions. I just want my work in progress. So now I've created a bar chart. I can go into my properties. And again, I'm just going to change my color palette. We'll go with 3 this time. And then we have sort of some of our general options, which should be fairly similar to what we've seen previously in the older versions of Workspace. So I'm just going to throw a border on there, and I'm going to show the title. And you notice my access. I'm noticing my access labels are a little messy there, so I'm going to click on my axis, and I'm actually going to make my orientation on my bottom labels to be vertical, make it a little bit cleaner going across. So it's just that easy to create a chart now. I think it's really, to me, much simpler than it was in the prior versions. And we still have those nice capabilities to duplicate. So if I wanted to have a numerical representation of this, I can quickly duplicate it and then just click on here, go up to my exploration window here, and I'm just going to change this to my old, my old grid, and then I'm just going to collapse my bars so I have a little bit more room. Now, a couple things that have been really nice for creating nice, clean-looking dashboards is this grid, first of all, which might be kind of hard to see on the screen share, but for those of us who work in Visio or other sort of drawing tools, this grid is really helpful to get things looking nice and tight. But they've also added just those simple simple alignment and snap features. So I can highlight. First, I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit. And I can highlight this and this, and I can quickly just align them left. So get a nice tight look. And then as I stretch this, you'll see these different guidelines that I get now, and it's going to sort of really tell me right when I'm aligned with this other object. So I get it snaps into place right there, and I get a nice streamlined look going down the left and the right. So obviously this one still needs a little bit of work, but as you can see, it kind of gets you moving towards that finished product of something that's nice and clean, nice lines going up the left and right sides. And then a couple other new, bells and whistles that they've added here on the tabs. We used to just have like a couple of options for tabs in terms of what they look like, but you can now go and you can actually change your fill color on your tabs, change your title color, but you can actually go and do individual styles on the different tabs. So I can say, I want my revenue forecasting to have a different fill color. I want revenue forecasting to be red. So you can really like customize each element of your workbook with that, to the level that you can put an icon in there. So lots of flexibility on the dashboarding. Here you have your snap functions, which I was talking about, showing grid, snapping to grid, snapping to objects. You can toggle those off. I haven't found the need to yet. To me, they've been really helpful in getting the dashboards lined up. Additionally, you have sizing. So you can always, if you're trying to get things sized up to be uniform going down the page, you can use these sizes to get your different widgets to be sized exactly the same. So lots of nice features just to get that more enterprise dashboard look. So it's really been nice to work with in terms of just aesthetically getting dashboards set up. And I think that was that covers most everything I wanted to cover. So we have about 10 minutes left. Any additional questions, you can put in the question box and Rob will field them for me. If you'd like to see me do anything again, happy to run back through any of those samples. We covered a lot here in 45 minutes.
So Matt, couple of questions just came through. Can you add calculations to the side of the charts, like compound annual growth rate, for example?
I think you can. I don't want to say that definitively, but I think what you would have to do is convert it to an exploration first, and do like an insert a calculation into the, using the let me go back to revenue analysis here. So over revenue forecasting, excuse me. So these are inserted calculations. So what I think you would have to do is first come in to an exploration and create that virtual member, whatever you'd like to call it, that calculated member, and then convert the exploration to a chart.
Okay. Okay. And then we have one more question, which I actually don't quite understand. Have you tried embedding a workbook using the new endpoints? I'm not quite sure I understand it. Maybe, do you?
So I think, so no, but I think I think it's referring to using the, I'm assuming it's to use this, the embedded code here. So when you share a link or when you share a workbook, it gives you a URL to plug into like a different application to embed it into that application. So no, so the answer is no, I haven't tried it yet, but I will actually put that on my list as something to try.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that. I think the further comment was for embedding, we used to have the TM1 WebCube viewer.
Gotcha. So the TM1 Web API.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So I think, well, so the Cube Viewer API was for a specific view. What I just showed was actually for a specific book. So I think I guess the question would be, what's the goal? Is it for just a single view or is it for a whole book? But that said, we could play with both of those things and get back to you.
Yeah, I think we'll follow up on this offline, and we'll kind of have the conversation.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's 8 minutes before 3 o'clock. I don't see any other questions in the chat window here, so I think we can just wrap it up and give people some time back. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining today. Much appreciated. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have any questions, we'll follow up with some of you about some of these items that were raised. If you have any other questions and would like to discuss in more detail, please let us know. More than happy to do that. Until that's the case, thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.
Yes, thank you, everybody.